Hello, this is Trace Allen with Texas State University. I am getting my master's in sustainability and have been the invasive species removal technician here on campus for about a year. And I will be taking y'all through a virtual walkthrough of the invasive plants that are on Texas State. Hope you enjoy. So first off, this is a view of the campus map. The blue are areas that me and volunteers have already removed, and the red is are areas that have dense populations of invasive species. During this walkthrough, we are gonna start over here and kind of snake our way around into finally ending up over here. So, just to kind of give you some stats and numbers, there's about 23 acres on Texas State campus where invasive species have been established. And of those acres, only 2.29 acres were removed. So that's about a 10% clearing in this past year. So to start off, let's just introduce y'all to some of the most prominent invasive species on campus. First, we have golden bamboo, Phyllostachys aria, and we can see why it gets its name. We can see that it has a golden rod and it looks like a bamboo shoot. Next, we will be talking about catclaw vine, Unguis cati macfadania. And this is going to be a vine, and it's very characteristic to have these claws that help it climb up trees and walls. With also on each little offshoot, it has two leaves. Next, we will talk about ligustrum lucidum. And this is going to be very characteristic, that shiny leaf on the top side. On the back side, it has a very pale, dull green to it. And then we can also see the trunk is white spotted sometimes with gray-green underbark. Okay. And then lastly, we have the China berry. Right now, it's early spring here in San Marcos. And so they are starting to flower. So it's going to be really easy to see these in the canopy. And also, you can see kind of on this leaf right here, this is actually one leaf. And we see that it breaks off not only once, but twice. And so we're going to call that a double compound leaf. And this leaf kind of looks like an arrowhead to me. So we'll just say it's a double compound leaf with kind of arrowhead shaped leaflets. Okay, so to get started, we are going to start down here near the agriculture building and the swimming pool area. And first off, we have this causeway. This is an area that I have already cleared out most of the invasive species, and we see a lot of green briar in this area. Okay, so we're just going to kind of click through these because there's not any invasives here. Okay, so that was that little walkway, and then we're going to look across the street and we are going to see just this mast of golden bamboo. We can see that these go up to almost the top of the canopy of this tree right here, not overshadowing the canopy by any means, but it is getting up to the lower branches of this oak right here. So here's another picture of how far it goes. And we're gonna walk across the street and get a better look. And you can use this as kind of a size uh, length right here. You know, this is probably for maybe 3.5 feet tall. And we can see that the top of this bamboo is easily more than double this height right here. So this is a well-established bamboo cluster. Okay, and this is kind of a side view. And if we look down here at this truck, that's kind of where this picture is right now. So these were planted on a hillside, it looks like, and just from vegetative growth, growing down into the soil and popping up a new head. It has totally overtaken this slope right here. And so we see our first glimpse of a China berry also within this bamboo mast. And we can see that it kind of has that parasol shape of the leaf cluster. And then we can also see the pink white flowers popping in and out. Okay. And we can just see how dense this bamboo is up against this oak tree right here. We can't even see the trunk of it. That's how dense this bamboo is. We see some more China berry poking its head out here. We see some vines coming down. That might be Mustang grape, which is a native species here in Texas. And yeah, just look at that. Look at how dense that bamboo cluster is right there. We can see some rocks poking through. So that might be a sign of erosion. Um, but we'll just continue on. We see on the other side of this tanker, we see another China berry kind of poking its head out. But bamboo all surrounding this little tank right here. And these are the two China berries that we just saw. This on the right side of the tanker, this on the left side of the tanker. Okay, so we kind of went this way a little bit, saw the height of the bamboo, came down, and now we are headed towards the administrative building. So, walking up the steps to get to the administrative building, we see one China berry right here, another one right here, and it might be hard to tell the leaves from this distance, but if you look at the trunk shape and the limbs, it kind of has that fanning towards the sun, but always in an upward way. You don't really see China berry. Growing its limbs out horizontally, they usually will do it in an up direction. I mean, as will all trees, but sometimes, like this oak right here, it gets a little horizontal and then it actually goes down. We won't see that very often with the China berry. Okay, so this is just kind of the base of where we saw that China berry. And just looking at the understory, we're going to see this a lot. There's almost zero vegetation. Um, so just kind of keep that in mind. With a super dense canopy, not a whole lot of light can get down to the soil. And so nothing is able to grow, which is going to lead to erosion. Okay, this is the first look at a ligustrum lucidum that we have. And this is a pretty good example. We're going to see whenever we look at the canopy, these shapes kind of poking out at us. It's definitely a darker green than anything else in the canopy as far as here on Texas State. And we can see the shine kind of here and there. So this is a perfect example of what we're going to be looking at on Texas State. Okay, and just kind of peering through. So I'm at the top of the hill and I'm taking a picture down at the slope, and we can see this is a hackberry, very characteristic bark of a hackberry. And then we see this ligustrum cluster. We have other trees in this image, maybe some sort of cedar elm. I can see the leaves of a sandpaper tree. This might be a sandpaper tree as well. Okay, and this is very characteristic bark of a China berry as well. We see the long snaking, cracking patterns. And this is different from an elm or an oak because there's going to be a lot more horizontal cracking with those two barks. So we can say that just looking by this bark, this is probably a China berry. Okay, so we went up the steps and now we are going to walk across the street and then we will turn into that administrative building. Okay, and so this is just a pic. This is where I came out of the steps, and this is just kind of a cross picture here. Um, we can see that a lot of this is actually native stuff, so that's always happy to see from at least this top of the hill. But we can definitely see that there are trees down here and right here, so that there is a stark decline in elevation right there. Okay, and just peering through, even though the outside looked good, on the inside we do see some ligustrum poking through. And then here's just a beautiful picture of China berry. Okay, and as we back up, we can kind of see what's going on in the canopy. It tells a story, and we see this China berry in full blossom. We see a ligustrum kind of poking its head out here in this array of native species. And this is just another picture of canopy. We see this tree in flower, and then right next to it is also a China berry in flower. Okay, and this is just another example. We have this China berry right here with ligustrum poking its head through. Okay, so now I'm actually on the, I guess the back doors of the administrative building where there's a raised walkway from the street to the building. And this is just a picture of the general canopy. We can see that this is a dense cluster of ligustrum right here. This is a dense cluster of ligustrum. That's possibly ligustrum, maybe not. That kind of looks like ligustrum as well. So let's go take a closer look. Okay, and this is just another picture, zoom in here. And these dead limbs right here, this was probably during the 2020 freeze in Texas. And as we can see that even though this did a good number on this ligustrum tree, it is quickly sprouting new foliage. Okay, and then that's just a zoom in picture, so that was a ligustrum. Okay, so this is at the base of the ligustrum pictures that I just took. And so this is going to be the next area that we're going to go to. Okay, and this is just a little map representation. This is that walkway that we were just on. And now we're going to go down and take some pictures. Okay, so right here we can see this ligustrum that we were just taking pictures at the canopy. And then as we peer into what's going on back here, we see another ligustrum cluster, maybe one back there, ligustrum cluster. And again, we see this just bare soil, very steep decline or incline. Well, I guess decline since we're at the bottom of it. But we can just see how many species are in this one small area. Okay, and so this is just me walking into the forest. We see this sandpaper tree poke its head out again. We see a big ligustrum tree right here. Maybe some back in there. Well, let's see if we can get some better pictures. Yeah, so that's that big ligustrum cluster that we just saw. And just to look through how much degradation is going on here. Wow, that's beautiful. It's a big, big ligustrum. Okay, this is another ligustrum, and we can see the roots right here. That's a clear sign that there has been at least some erosion of topsoil. Though these roots used to be underground, and due to a heavy rain, it removed the topsoil because there's no vegetation holding that earth to the ground. And then we see a cute little sandpaper tree as well. Okay, so now we kind of make it out of the thickness, and we see a ligustrum here, um, ligustrum right here. This looks like a ligustrum here. The color kind of looks weird on these, but maybe it's because of the light. And just peering through at the top of the hill, looking downwards, it looks so desolate here on the ground. We see bare rocks down there, some trash. And that's inevitable. There's so many people walking through Texas State that somebody's gonna accidentally drop a can, and a big rain comes through and just kind of carries it to right there. And we see ligustrum here. We see that white spots with gray green bark. It's another picture of a twig. It didn't really want to focus on the background. Okay, wow, yeah, we see some ligustrum right here, ligustrum right here, ligustrum right there. And we can tell by the leaves and by the trunk pattern, we see a little bit of bare root popping up. And ligustrum, why it's so competitive is it's able to grow so close to each other. You know, a lot of times it won't just be this one trunk, it'll be a multi-trunk. And this right here, this is almost like a twin situation where it was probably two separate saplings that grew together and just shared its nutrients between the two. Yep, and we see this piping and just more ligustrum, more ligustrum. And this is the example photo that I had for y'all. And we see this bark of some China berry. My camera wanted to take a picture of this twig, but you can clearly see this is a ligustrum right here. This is a ligustrum right here. And we got some sandpaper tree as well. And sandpaper tree is native to San Marcos. So we like seeing them. These are good guys. Not that the invasive species are bad guys, you know, but just not for this ecosystem. How about that? And here we see first look at a mountain laurel. This is also a native species to Texas. But in the background, we do see this ligustrum right here, kind of growing up into this is going to be a live oak right here. And we can see that, you know, if we can take our imagination up into the canopy, that this ligustrum is going to be competing with this live oak for sunlight. Okay, and so we get kind of a view at the mid canopy, and we just see uh ligustrum here, ligustrum there, ligustrum right here. So we can just see that for all this open space where light could be coming down, you know, feeding or giving energy to these small mountain laurel saplings. Instead, the fast growing ligustrum is going to take advantage of that sunlight at the top of the canopy. Here we have what looks like a Texas persimmon. And we see a ligustrum cluster here, maybe over there, right here, but right behind this persimmon. Oh, that, you know what? This twig kind of looks like a dragon to me. Okay, and we see this, what looks like a sandpaper tree, and right behind it, there's that ligustrum cluster that we were just looking at. Ligustrum cluster here, surrounded by mountain laurels as well. We got ligustrum foliage right here. And I just thought this was such a cool picture. You know, you have this fallen China berry and it's being held up by, and we can tell it's a China berry because of the bark and because of this bipinnate foliage or double compound. And it's being held up by all these different ligustrum trees, and maybe some of the native trees are holding it too. But that just goes to show how dense these unattended areas are on Texas State campus. But just looking at this one image, we can absolutely see that 90% of the photo is dominated by ligustrum right here. Okay, and then just gonna take a step back. I think I'm actually turning around and taking pictures of the other side of the road. We see some ligustrum. I mean, this is just completely ligustrum except for this um, little mountain laurel right here. Okay, just some more canopy photos. This is a ligustrum right here. Some mountain laurels poking its head through. So let's take a step back and really look at the canopy. We see this ligustrum right here. We see some mountain laurel. See these flowering native trees. That's beautiful. Okay, and then we see this ligustrum, getting pretty high in the canopy. We'd consider this maybe mid canopy, and we can see that. Okay, so this ligustrum right here is taking over this top canopy area. and we can see a mountain laurel here. Okay, so what we kind of did is walked up the hill in the woods, kind of took pictures of both sides of the road as we were walking. Um, turned at the den, which is like a eating cafeteria. And then now we are going to walk at the backside of Old Main. Okay, so looking right here, we see some ligustrum. This kind of looks like some sort of legume, kind of like mesquite leaves to me. And then we have some ligustrum right here. You know, that doesn't look like ligustrum, but the leaf shape is very similar to it. But I don't think that's ligustrum. It's this one right here, this one right here, and that one right there. Okay, and that's that photo to the right that we just saw. And then we just see ligustrum in the behind the scenes stuff. They don't really grow out in front. It's where people don't really notice it. We see some ligustrum right here. We see a mountain laurel right here. And we can see that this ligustrum is specifically encroaching on this mountain laurel's ability to uh, gather sunlight. So you can see that at some point in time, this mountain laurel thought it was a better idea to branch away from the ligustrum. Okay, just some more pictures of the canopy. Some ligustrum right here. Ligustrum right here. Mountain laurel. See some ligustrum right here as we look through this mountain laurel tree. Okay, so we're just continuing on, but here's where we are. And then here is where it starts to change, and we see a lot of native species here. We see a trifoliolata, we see some mountain laurels. This is what I presume to be some sort of oak or elm. And this is really what the landscape should be, ground cover. We see grasses holding down the earth. So if there were to be a big rain, that would keep the soil intact. And we see that it's not as slanted as some of the others we've seen before. And look, we see some baby ligustrum poking its way through. In the midst of this native environment, we see the ligustrum wanting to take roots right here and right here. Okay, here's a ligustrum, mountain laurel, ligustrum right here. Let's see. Oh, there are some leaves of a ligustrum right there. I don't know which tree that's coming from though. Okay, so I guess now I'm taking a picture of the top of the hill that we just visited at. There's the admin building, so we're looking down back at it, and we can see there's some ligustrum right here, this oak tree, and it's just barely getting to the bottom of where the foliage for the oak starts. Okay, we can kind of see in the background of this wooded area, ligustrum right here. And like we would look at wilderness and these unkept areas, and when we imagine what nature is, we just imagine green foliage. But once we take the time to really see what species are invasive and which ones are native, um, we can really tell the difference. And a lot of that is just how the texture in the canopy. We see this big ligustrum stack right here, like something funky down there. Ligustrum right here, ligustrum right there, ligustrum right there. Yeah, so that right there, ligustrum. Okay, and so we're just again looking at this hillside, and we can see Maybe there was some terracing that someone tried to do long ago. Um, but again, terracing can only do so much if there's no vegetation, right? So we see this big ligustrum thing just dominating this mid canopy empty area. And here's just such a great example of what plant competition really looks like. Um, you see this big live oak tree. Let's see, is it a we'll say this is either a live oak or some sort of elm. It's probably a live oak. But we see a ligustrum literally growing in the growth of this oak, and if this still had foliage on it, we would probably see that this would be competing a little bit more with this oak. Okay, we just see this ligustrum right here, and once they get to a certain size, their bark sort of changes, right? It almost kind of mimics this oak bark right here, but this is just the base of that ligustrum we previously just saw. Okay, same here. Ligustrum, just a massive swath of ligustrum. And then we start to see Chinaberry kind of make its way back into the relationship. And this is just the other side. We see some ligustrum, maybe some mesquite. Ligustrum, ligustrum, ligustrum. This whole side right here is just ligustrum. There's some mountain laurel down here. Ligustrum, mountain laurel. Texas persimmon. Okay, some more ligustrum. More ligustrum. And yeah, we can kind of peer back into the ground cover and we see a couple of suckers popping up that are mountain laurels. But other than that, that's not enough vegetation to really hold the ground. And we can see this China berry. It's got some leaves sprouting out. Got some ligustrum up here. Mountain laurel. China berry. Hanging out with some mountain laurel. Okay, so we kind of went up those steps. This was that beautiful little hillside of native species, and then we kind of walked around, took pictures of both sides. Now we're gonna walk up the steps and then walk on the old main lawn. Okay, so going up the steps, first thing I see is this China berry that we just saw in the previous picture. And we can see again signs of terracing. So that's always good to see. And we can tell that this slope is definitely a lot better shape than some of the other slopes that we saw previously. And it's nice to see a lot of leaves on the ground. So at least the fungus have something to eat. And we just examples of this terracing. Philogustrum. Okay, so now we're at like so this is the old main lawn. Here's some ligustrum. Ligustrum right here. Ligustrum. 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 That looks really similar. Okay, so now we're at the lawn right here, and we're just gonna kind of continue, and then we're gonna go down these steps and then look at this area. So this is a Eriobotria. This is a non-native species, Eriobotria japonica. But as we can see, it is allowing other plants to grow at the base of it, right? And a little bit is bare, but that's just because of sunlight. This is probably, well, it's north actually. But this is a walking trail, so anywhere that there's going to be some traffic, there's not going to be that many plants. And this is the area that the volunteers that came out to help me remove some invasive species, this is the area that it was before. And, 6 months ago, this whole area would have been covered in bamboo and we wouldn't be able to see any of these. But even in this bamboo field, we see this ligustrum right here. And this is just kind of another shot of it. Okay, we see a ligustrum right here, some cedars popping up. We probably just finished a session because there's still some leftover debris. And what bamboo will do, so these are bamboo shoots that we cut down probably last week, maybe 2 weeks ago. And they're vegetative. So once you cut the base, they will want to grow again. So these are going to have to be cut back probably once a month um, every year for the next 3 years in order for all the ribosomes to run out of the roots. Okay, just some more bamboo right here. And this is periwinkle is the common name. I think it's like dog bane, vinca minor, but they have beautiful purple flowers once it gets a little bit farther into spring. And there's that Eriobotria japonica that we saw. Okay, so now we're gonna walk through here and we're gonna kind of come this way a little bit and then we're gonna go down here. Okay, so we see some ligustrum on the other side of the stairs. See some ligustrum on this hillside walking up to Old Main. Yep, they just like to cluster really close together and dominate the hillside. And then this is just the backside of the bamboo removal site. The bamboo removal site's right down there. Some ligustrum in the bamboo site as well. And I just thought this was such a cool picture, take away this invasive species, ligustrum right here, but just such a mosaic of different types of trees in this one little area. We see Virginia creeper shining its face. And so this is kind of at the back of the agriculture building. That's the agriculture building right there. We see some ligustrum here. I'm not gonna mess with anything that's close to a voltage box, so that ligustrum might live out its days. And this is the first wild area, wild area, whatever that means to you, but basically unmanicured land. This is the first area that I came to, and so you can see that whatever fallen debris I got, I would just put it horizontally, perpendicular to the slope so that any leaves that fall would get caught right there. Just anything to slow down the water flow. Okay, so we're just going to kind of keep walking. Yep, so this is all cleared native species. And this is so awesome to see. In some of those areas we didn't see any ground cover. And look at this. This is just 6 months later, and there's already vegetation coming back to life. And that's how much power opening up the canopy and letting some sunlight really hit the ground. This is what it can do. When we start to see this grass, and ultimately that's what we want to cover this entire area. So me and Dr. Cade got some native grass seed and have been spreading it, but they should sprout closer to summer. Okay, and we just see this native. They have yellow flowers, if you can see that right there. Kind of ground cover. It's not a grass, but it's beautiful. Okay. And again, this is the hillside, stacking up logs as best as I can. Slow down the water. Piling it up. Anything to really catch these leaves to start building soil, because it might look disgusting now. But this is actually kind of habitat for some birds. They can use a lot of these twigs for their nest. On newly fallen trees, if deer get desperate enough, they'll eat the leaves. So um, this is a good little songbird habitat. It's just nice to see all that green. It's just a back look of that area. Okay. So finish that. So what we did is we came here. This was that beautiful biodiverse area we saw, and then we came over here, walked down there, and walked close to the Medina building. And next we are going to head to the bike cave. Okay, so this is right outside the bike cave. This is a China berry. Dr. Cade likes me to leave some likes me to leave this as an example for some of her students for her horticulture class. Here's a China berry, and you can see that this is a ligustrum, excuse me. But you can see the berries on it. It's kind of like that dark blue purple tone. It's just really close to the road. So this is where you kind of have to use your best judgment of, what is best so that we don't hit cars or this electric wire, right? And so here's another close to the road ligustrum, some cedar or juniper ash. Okay, here we see China berry, but really close to that wire, so I'm not gonna mess with that. But this is an area that I cleared out before of everything that wasn't gonna hit a building or a wire. And we see these big bunches of grass. I think that looks so awesome. I wish this was everywhere, and that's what we're doing. We're planting native grasses to cover these hillsides, but we want it to happen now, and it's realistically gonna take years. So, and we see some new what looks like pokeweed to me. See this China berry kind of close to that, so I'm not gonna mess with it. Yeah, same thing here. Some purple flowers that I saw. And again, this grass on the hillside is just so awesome to see, because this is the best defense against erosion is ground cover or terracing, but terracing is labor intensive. And we see a mountain laurel over here and this big brush, and we're gonna peek into the woods. So here we go. Here's just another view back there. And we see anything on the right side I kind of deemed is a little bit too risky for me to cut down as far as the power lines and the street go. Here we have a juniper ash. And I took this stump, um, but even if you cut and there's still enough stump left, it will just re-sprout new things. So whenever you do cut down a ligustrum or a China berry, you put brush killer on the stump. But if like this is too healthy of a ligustrum to let a little bit of poison kill the whole thing. Okay, again, we see a lot of ligustrum on this hillside. And again, let's look at the ground cover. We see a little bit here and there. Oh yeah, but not on this hillside. That's looking great. But again, I don't see a ligustrum in this photo, and we have grass. See some Texas buckeye right there. See some rocks. Maybe someone put this in the past to slow down erosion to build up that soil behind the rocks. Yeah, that's probably what it was. And it did a good job. I mean, look at that grass. Like, definitely held its ground. Here we see an Andina domestica. That's a non-native species, but I wouldn't technically call it a like aggressively invasive species. But it's usually used for ornamental. Some ligustrum right here. See an old cedar right there. Cedar. Juniper ash, that's another. That's probably the more accurate name to call these. An oak. Just another picture of that ligustrum. That's a big ligustrum patch. Okay, and then we see another ligustrum patch right there. See some deer poop. That's always good to see. See a sandpaper tree. That's that ligustrum kind of winding its way around. Okay. So now we're entering another cleared area. This was, let me go back. This is just some sort of access runoff water is just coming right here. So I just put as much debris as I could to, you know, be that first impact so this water isn't just hitting bare soil. And again, I'm trying to almost naturally terrace this area, trying to put as much debris in the way of water as possible. Okay, so we can see that I gave some air, gave some sunlight to at least these trees and some of that ground cover by taking out these ligustrum right here. Okay, and we can see the ligustrum kind of settled at this base right here. And they probably got here, these weren't ornamental, probably um, birds came and ate the berries and then came here and then accidentally dropped some or something like that. And then, okay, so some erosion right here, and I'm just again stacking these sticks horizontally to slow down the water flow as best as I can. Some more stacking. Got some, it's like a deer trail maybe right there. Sandpaper tree. Gustrum really close to the music building. Okay, so now that we're at the music building, we are going to continue on. But this is the track that we just went on this side of the bike cave, then on the north side, and now we're at the bus stop. So this is a little tower that I made from all the ligustrum that I cut down from this area. And you can see it from the bottom of the bus stop, but right off the bat, you can just see dense ligustrum. And this is kind of at the entrance of where I walk into the woods, and this is the music building, and we'll use this as perspective later. Okay, so when I walk into the forest and look to my right, this is what I see, just dense ligustrum, bare rock and soil everywhere. Just a zoom in there. And then I saw these deer over there, so it's nice to see that someone is at least utilizing the area. But I would love to have more ground cover so they can have a nutritional diet, because ligustrum is probably not in their diet. And this is the hillside that splits the wooded area that I haven't worked on versus the one that I have. And this is just hope, although you do see this ligustrum cluster right here, we see this native tree with grass covering the hillside. And this is really what we want. This is so awesome. Like even on this steep of an incline or decline, um, we see that the grass is really holding that soil down. And then we have a China berry right here. And then this is just kind of the backside of the threshold. And, I kind of wanted it to be an almost inviting place so that people would, maybe want to come see it. And also the trunk of the ligustrum, so a ligustrum has allelopathic chemicals that put this biotic chemical in the ground that stops other plants from germinating. So I thought, maybe if I just put the thicker logs kind of off to the side for now, eventually that allelopathic chemical will fade out and these will still stay in this area. So the nutrition and all the I guess all the nutrients that these trees absorbed will go back into the ground eventually. Okay, so here we go. We see a lot of terracing here. This is probably where I spent the majority of my time at work. And so I'll just get rocks off the path and put them here just to slow down that water. Just kind of And I had to make a little trail because, my biggest fans are the deer. So I had to make sure that they were still able to walk through here. And using the stumps as kind of like stakes. I put stakes here and here wherever necessary, but um, you know, putting the stumps there too, that works just as well. And putting rocks on top of that kind of critical point is a good way to keep it steady. Yeah, so over time, hopefully, we can already see it there. There's already kind of like a little terrace happening right here as well. Oh yeah, and I saw this little dragonfly. Beautiful. This is like the newest section, and I just put some of these trees kind of in the path so that the deer can eat some of the leaves if they wish to do so. Now we're at the top. It was kind of rainy that day, so I just cut this one at a middle section, so whenever it's not a rainy day, I can cut it at the base and put some brush killer. This is like a little terrace uh, I made, but it was too time consuming to make this because instead of putting, just logs horizontal, it'd be cool to like actually terrace it out, but it was just a little bit too time consuming. And then here is the top of the music building. And to put that at reference, you remember this picture? Yeah. So this is a very steep change in elevation. So that's what probably was the hardest thing about working in this area was the steepness. Yeah, because you can see, I mean, that's a big drop off. And then again, I said it earlier, but this is just an example, sometimes small birds will use this area as like twig um nest building material, or maybe just to escape from larger birds, either way. Yep, and this is just the top of the hill, and this is kind of my brush pile that I've made. Okay, so now we're kind of getting to the grassy hillside. We see this trifoliolata again. So we walked across the street. Here's the bus stop. We went up the ramp. So we went across and we went this way. So now we're gonna check out a top view of the other side of the ligustrum forest that I have not cleared yet. But this is just a perfect example of what it did look like. This is probably the densest place on campus as far as number of invasive species go. So we see China berry, ligustrum, 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 ligustrum. Same deal here. Some China berry. That's that same big China berry. Some China berry right here, right here. Ligustrum. Uh, I know it looks like a hackberry, but I'm not sure. That looks like a sandpaper tree though. Here and in again. Let's look at the ground cover. Yep, just peering down the hillside, we see ligustrum, 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 ligustrum. Y'all are gonna get so tired of that word by the end of this. But I'll just kind of be quiet and let y'all enjoy the photos. Oh, okay, wait. But before, I just thought it was so funny that we have this bird house on a invasive tree, so at least there's some benefit to the native ecosystem, but I just thought that was quite fitting. Here we see some ligustrum, some Chinaberry, ligustrum, ligustrum, Chinaberry. Gosh, and just look how steep that slant is. Okay, so we kind of walked this corner, and now we're going to head over here to check out the Sesame Wilderness. Right off the bat, we see a Chinaberry. Beautiful. You know, it's kind of dead on this area, but we see that. We see some Chinaberry in there. We see some Chinaberry over there. Just a zoom in. Chinaberry, some ligustrum, literally growing on the roots of what looks like a cottonwood. Just a close up of that. And so this is part of the area that's not highlighted in the invasive map that I gave, just because this wild area looks awesome. We have cedar elm, which is a good presence to have. We have grass on the ground. So this is really ideally what we want to transform all of these invasive space into. And so this looks like some sort of berm that they put together vaguely recently, and to slow down some water flow. And we see this just awesome grassy hillside. Like ideally, you know, the deer would really like to munch on some of this stuff. And they can't. Well, actually, I don't know if they particularly like this kind of grass. They're kind of more foragers. But we can just see right here this stark contrast of grass, and then once it hits that forest, it's just no ground cover. A lot of fallen debris. So I tried to get like that change, but I couldn't, you know, these trees are kind of in the way. But you can just see, you know, go 6 feet this way. Oh, grassy meadow. 6 feet this way, ligustrum Chinaberry forest. Okay. Oh, just absolutely no ground cover. Well, I mean, I hate to say absolutely. Here's some Texas Buckeye. And, you know, strangely enough, Texas Buckeye does not have a problem growing next to ligustrum. So I wonder why that is. But here's the ligustrum. Here's the ligustrum. Oh man, I mean, this just paints such a good picture of the situation. We have ligustrum, like the majority of what we are seeing here is ligustrum. And we have this Texas Buckeye as well. And that looks like a Chinaberry. And it looked like to me that they put this wall up to be some sort of terrace as well. And we can see that it's at least done something, because this hillside looks really nice, not as eroded as some of the other places we've seen, and it's covered in grass. So good job, past people. And over here we kind of see a grove of what looks like to be pokeweed, pokeberry, whatever you call it. And I think it's kind of cool to see the dead plant from last year, and then see the new growth of this year. I think that's so cool. Yeah, Chinaberry right here, ligustrum right here. What looks like to be some sort of elm. Just let y'all enjoy it, and I'll kind of move my cursor to point out some invasives. This is, it looks like a past, um, slowing down water project, but we can see that it hasn't really stood the test of time. Some fallen trees, some slopes. Someone's abandoned fence or something. Just random debris. Like, how did this get here? Like, this is a fully concrete planter. Like, maybe some crazy storm flushed it down here, but I mean, I have no idea why that's here. Whatever the heck that thing is. See some ligustrum right here, right here. And then we get to an area that it's a little bit less ligustrum, right? And we see this Vinca minor that we saw earlier, the periwinkle, just covering the landscape. Some sort of barrier someone put up. Again, has not really stood the test of time. Getting it over there. And then we start to see the environment change a little bit. We start to see some bamboo, right? So now as we are leaving the ligustrum forest that had the little brief moment of native species, we're gonna start to get into this bamboo forest. And what's interesting is, I don't know if they meant to do this or if this is just erosion control, but wherever these fabric wire posts are, um, the bamboo doesn't seem to grow under it. So I think that might be a cool way of, if you ever want to have bamboo, um, don't. But if you want to, maybe putting up these would deter them from doing that or from growing out. We can see a little opening that happened, and then we start to see bamboo. Ligustrum. Ligustrum. Juniperous ash. Okay, and then we kind of get out from the forest and we see that the golden bamboo is dominating from low canopy to mid canopy. Oh my gosh, look how tall that one got. Good for you. He should be in the NBA. Okay, so what we did is we kind of came over here, went to this big cottonwood with the ligustrum growing on it, and now we walked through the ligustrum forest with the periwinkle subdivision, and now we're going to be entering the China berry bamboo section. Okay, so just walking along this area here that's kind of parallel to the street of Sesame. Sesame is right behind me, and we just see this domination of bamboo in the mid and low canopy. This is just like a pool to hold some water, whatever runs off. So there's mosquitoes down here for sure. I mean, and these are all native species even. Um, and we don't see any ground cover, and that might be due to shade or due to constant erosion or whatever, but I mean, still. Looks like a desolate landscape. See some China berries starting to grow. So this area is definitely less dense as far as the entire area goes. So this would uh, be a little bit easier than the previous ligustrum forest that we saw to manage, at least. Okay, and then we see this big erosion spot, and just it is ripping through this area. Even though there was grass here at one point, you know, that wasn't enough to stop this water flow. And this is an area that heat had cleared out, and they had an adopt a spot sort of thing. So they were picking up trash and clearing out debris so deer could walk back and forth a little bit easier. And we see some struggling, I'm gonna call them erosion barriers here. Oak tree. This is where all the mosquitoes were going. So I kind of, after I saw that, I started speeding up my walk. Yeah, but you can just see that the broiler building's right up there. So I would assume that, or maybe this is just street runoff and this is where it all funnels. But yeah, just there's gonna be high erosion in this area with this much water coming through. You can see that another big drain that they have. You know, they put this rock little barrier so it wouldn't just be cutting through the ground. See a ligustrum back there though. Bamboo, bamboo. China berry from below. China berry, China berry. Berry, China berry, China berry. China berry. China berry. Okay, and so now we're kind of at the top. We're out of the gully. We're standing on concrete. And this is the backside of that bamboo hillside. And we can just see how far that goes. I mean, it goes all the way over there. Yeah, and it wraps around, and this is the beginning of it. Over here, a little bit farther, is that ligustrum periwinkle kind of forest, and this is all the bamboo. Is a China berry, ligustrum, China berry, and this is like the corner of Sesame, and uh, you know, that is so cool looking. That's like an art piece right there. Wow, that's cool. But this is Sesame right here, and this is like the most outside corner of campus, as far as like the Sesame, this area that we're looking at. And just on the other side is also bamboo cluster. And you know, I I bet in the 80s or the 70s someone planted these here because they didn't want to look at the ugly area. But now it is just a little bit too established that it's taking over some of these native species areas. Okay, so what we did is we got out of the ligustrum periwinkle forest here, then we went around to the side, up, out of the bamboo forest, and we walked around. Oh, sorry. Then we walked around, and this is the corner that we're at. So here's just another look of just how dense that bamboo cluster is. Non-native wire. Oh no. Okay. So then once we get over here, we're gonna kind of walk down. This is the rec center, and we're gonna take a right, take a left, and then we're gonna get to the disc golf area. So right off the bat, we see some manicured trees. I love it. But then right behind it, we see some ligustrum. This whole thing is ligustrum except for this little bit. Ligustrum, ligustrum, China berry, ligustrum, 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 China berry, ligustrum, ligustrum, ligustrum. And you can see, I mean, just look at this contrast right here. We have open fields, it's still crowded over here with trees, but over here, where we see that this area is just totally being dominated. So there's no light getting to the ground. Like that's where we start to see some vegetation degradation. Then here's some ligustrums popping up at the base of this oak tree. See some ligustrum back there. Ligustrum growing through the rocks. Ligustrum growing through some rocks. Ligustrum just hanging out. This should just be like a modeling pitch for ligustrum. I have so many pictures of it. Okay, we see some ligustrum here, ligustrum right there, ligustrum right here. Oh man, right here it's kind of dominating the top canopy. If we consider this the tallest tree and that's the top canopy, then just look how much it's taken over there. Ligustrum, and they grow in packs. Ligustrum on this corner. Like some sort of runoff is happening right there. Ligustrum. I just thought this was such a cool photo. You got the water tower in the background and this beautifully, twisted old tree. I think that's so cool. Okay, continuing on. Got some ligustrum. Ligustrum. Like some China berry. And this is another like water runoff place, but it'd be really cool to plant some hardy water loving plants here so that it's just not like a mud puddle. China berry. Some ligustrum. Ligustrum. Actually, no. That's cedar elm. Oh. Yeah, I mean. I don't know what I took this picture for. Okay, yeah, so that is a China berry. That's what I was taking a picture of. And then here, some more terracing that people did in the past. Good job. I love your thinking. Just a little China berry hangout. China berry, China berry. This is just a zoom in of those China berry. And then we start to see across the field, because a lot of the field was really good and really maintained. But we're just gonna look at this top canopy. We can see that China berry is absolutely competing for that top canopy spot. And we see ligustrum coming in with its domination as well. We see this right here. This is cedar elm. Okay, and so it looked like whenever they built this dorm, this is a new dorm. I guess like 4 years ago. But they did these terracing, which is awesome to see. But gosh, you can see just on the other side of that terrace that it is just very scary looking back here. And it would even be a great project just for someone to come and pick up all this trash, because I pick up trash places that I go to, but like even just doing that would be a great thing for a club to do or something. But all this is ligustrum right here. We see a oak back there. See some ligustrum poking up. But we don't want to look at the individuals. We want to look at the whole thing, and just trying to get your eyes accustomed to seeing this bark is really important because perception is understanding, and understanding is knowledge, and knowledge is power. So here's a ligustrum here by this oak. The majority of these in the background are ligustrum or cedar elm. And cedar elm is just a type of elm, so we're okay with those. Here's a sandpaper tree, but I see some ligustrum here. Ligustrum, 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 ligustrum. So this is a pretty high density of ligustrum over here. And this is on the golf course. Or the Frisbee golf course. Not that we don't have an actual golf course. We see some ligustrum, erosion kind of landscape. Ligustrum right there. Just bare landscape back there. We see a Texas buckeye blossoming right there. And it looks like they tried to put some rocks also to stop erosion. Good job, past. This definitely looks less washed away than some of the other sites we've seen. Ligustrum, Texas persimmon, ligustrum. Actually, I don't know about that one. Bark looks kind of weird. Well, I guess that bark kind of looks like it too. China berry. You guessed it. Some more ligustrum. Right here. And honestly, this is such a beautiful walk. I'm not trying to paint like a scary picture of all this, but it's just once it's out there, who knows? But it did take me like 4 hours to go through all these spots and take pictures of. So it is a good long walk if you're into that sort of thing. And again, bare roots, China berry, ligustrum, China berry, ligustrum, China berry. Oh wait, no, that's a hackberry I was talking about behind it. Okay, so kind of more the same. And then we have this oak and literally two ligustrums growing on top of the roots of an oak. You know what I mean? Like that, if that's not a great example of how competition happens between plants, I don't know what is. Gosh, again. Aggressive. Okay. Dense cluster of ligustrum. Aha! And now we start to get into kind of a different, it's not an ecotone, but a different kind of vegetation community. See some red oak right here. And we start to see these vines. This is that cat claw unguis cati macfadenia that we saw earlier. So we're kind of getting into the area and we see some ligustrum right here. Gosh, doesn't that just look so, yeah, I think it looks cool. But like in a scary way, like you don't really want to touch anything. You don't really want to fall. Okay. Ligustrum, China berry. Okay, so now we're here. We just walked all the whole Frisbee golf course, and we're gonna come here and cross the street and check out the last couple of spots. Oh wait, no, we're getting into the cat claw kind of vined over area, as you will. So here's some ligustrum. Someone's been chewing on this ligustrum. I would be very curious to figure out what wanted to do that. Okay, and so we start to see the vines kind of take over a little bit more. Some more ligustrum. that same photo. We see this oak, we see some cat claw coming up. Oh, and we're okay with vines climbing trees, but we're not okay with vines taking over canopy cover that would be dominated by trees. So just kind of keep that in mind. See some ligustrum at the base of this oak tree. Yeah, we see some cat claw vine going there, going here. And gosh, is that not the coolest photo? I mean, not the photo, like coolest scene, we have the Texas red Buckeye starting to bloom down there, and we have this dead arch of what looks like a tree that's been overgrown with cat claw, and then the cat claw died and starting to grow back. I just think that's such a cool image. And this is probably one of the coolest places on campus to go to, even though it's being dominated by invasive species. It is still really cool to see down here. Almost feels like Jurassic Park or something. Anyway. And here's what I mean by vines taking over a tree. This is a little baby cedar elm, and the vines are even the weight of the vines will change the growth pattern of the tree. And so we can probably, I mean, I can't get up there to see, but we can assume that to get the sunlight, this vine is going to need to go on top of the leaves. And so eventually that'll choke out that section of leaves, and the tree will have to grow in a wonky way. And this is kind of okay, well, it looks cool, but you kind of can't really see the vine. Well, I mean, this is just a massive vine right here. Like that's not a limb. That's just a massive vine. See some ligustrum. See some more vine. Texas Buckeye. And this is just so cool. It kind of looks like a doorway. Oh. Yeah. I just like that picture. This is like the little creek, I guess, that they kind of installed. Showing some more vines, some more trees. More cat claw. I'll just kind of be quiet here for a little bit and just let you enjoy the scenery. Some ligustrum right there. Okay, I'll talk a little bit more now that this is a canopy picture. Oh, we see some China berry, see some cat claw, see some ligustrum, mountain laurel, China berry. China berry with cat claw growing on it. Same thing. Okay, so here's kind of a cross section of where we're walking away from the cat claw infested area, and we just see this ligustrum forest right here, and we can just see that there's no ground cover, heavy erosion, and we're just gonna walk to it. And thinking about like how did these get here? What I have kind of pondered is sometime in the past. Okay, well actually this is a cool photo. Okay, so right here we see some cat claw on some China berries. But sometime in the past, someone brought over China berry, ligustrum, cat claw, golden bamboo for ornamental purposes and didn't know what power they held. And it seems like Chinaberry is the common thread between all of these areas because in the bamboo forest there was Chinaberry present. In the ligustrum wooded areas, we always see a Chinaberry present. In some of the Unguis cati, we also saw Chinaberry. So what I assume kind of how these came so dominant is Chinaberry would come and compete at the top story. They're deciduous. So when their leaves fall, um, they will change the chemical composition of the soil, right? And since a lot of these do come from China, that is a lot more competitive as far as vegetation goes than here in San Marcos, it would change the soil composition, making it harder for native species to grow and easier for ligustrum and bamboo to grow. So I think the China berry was maybe the first one to succeed in these areas. And then once they did, it made that easier for other ones. That's kind of my theory of looking at everything and kind of trying to piece together the relationships of it all, kind of trying to figure out like how does succession work when you think about invasive species, and if it's such a big hassle to remove all of them, why even do it? Like, why not just let these wild areas be themselves? And to a certain extent, I totally understand that point of view. Like, it's already here. The ecosystem is evolving just like everything else on the planet. Like, why can't we let it? Um, if we don't protect our native species, uh, eventually they may go extinct, right? If we just keep on letting these wild areas um go unmanaged, it's a very, I don't want to say it's a good possibility, but there is definitely a realistic possibility that invasive species will take over these native areas. And so I and this is a honeydew or honeysuckle, but there is a native one and there is a one from Japan. So this one kind of looks like the one from Japan, but we'd have to see the flower to be extra sure. And this is just a cool picture of Virginia creeper. I just think that looks so awesome. Like, that's how a vine should interact with the tree, not trying to dominate the canopy, but using this trunk verticality to get some more vegetation on. That's just so cool. Here's a parasol tree. This one's non-native, but I mean, as we can see, this is the first one we saw, so I wouldn't really consider it aggressively invasive. Okay, so we kind of walked across the street into the cat claw forest over here, or cat claw jungle, and then we came over here to the ligustrum forest, and we kind of walked across and got to the amphitheater. Okay, and here's just that close-up of why it's called cat claw. Chinaberry, ligustrum, Chinaberry. Oh yeah, what was I saying? Oh, something about succession and oh yeah, so when we remove these invasive species, like, don't it's okay to feel bad, because as soon as we recognize, a plant is bad enough that it's causing a problem and that we need to remove it, that gives equal justification for that. You know what? There are plants that we do value over other ones. So, having the conversation that we think these ones are worth removing, that also gives justification that, okay, well, then there are some that are worth protecting. And I'm just kind of circling the areas with my mouse that uh, are ligustrum or China berry or stuff that we've been talking about. At this point, y'all should be better at catching these than me. But we see some ligustrum right there. And so, yeah, we shouldn't view this problem as I mean, it doesn't even have to be a problem. It's really what the community wants, because if Texas State campus is okay with, not being a native plant sanctuary, and letting these areas go wild, maybe as an example of, here's what a conglomeration of exotics and native species look like. Well, fun fact, that experiment is going to be, you're only going to have the highest competing exotics, and I think all this wood should be used, like it should either stay on site, so that nutrients will go back into the soil, or it should be made into something, like we've already gone through and looked at hundreds of ligustrum, probably about 100 China berry, for sure a lot of bamboo. I know they make toilet paper out of bamboo. But like these invasive species absolutely still have usefulness, so as far as like the economic value of removing these, it's um there is still economic benefit to removing these invasive species, other than just the value that we will have native species still here, you know? Just another picture of that. Some more ligustrum. Ligustrum. And then here's just a big, probably runoff point. It's right by a dorm, so this collects a lot of trash. I think it'd be really cool to have a club that's just called like the trash picker uppers, and like once a month, just everyone goes out for 2 hours, goes to different places and just picks up trash. That'd be really cool. Okay, so we kind of went away from that outside amphitheater, went up here, kind of went on the backside of that hill. So we saw the interior of that ligustrum forest, and we saw the hillside of it. And we kind of, now we're going to be walking over here towards the supple building. Just right across the street, we can see some juniperous ash there. We see a ligustrum right here. Some more ligustrum, a China berry. Ligustrum. Ligustrum, ligustrum, ligustrum. 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 And now we're right here. Ah, okay, and we're done. See, that wasn't too bad. So just to kind of recap of what all we saw, you can pause the video here if you kind of want to take a closer look at it. But we started over at the golden bamboo China berry over here by the agriculture building. Near Old Main, we had the mostly ligustrum China berry in a mosaic of native species. And then we, went through the areas that we have cleared. And then we got to the ligustrum, China berry, and these areas. And as y'all remember, this is where the periwinkle site was. So just a little bit of that is going to be native species. But these were a little bit more spread out. Oh, wait, no, sorry. This is the hillside of ligustrum that was really dense. This is that grassy hillside. You can see it kind of right there. And then we get into the dense ligustrum forest, a little bit of periwinkle native species here. And then we get into the China berry bamboo gully here. And then we walked over here, walked over there, walked down here to the Frisbee golf course where we saw mostly Chinaberry, ligustrum, and these strips. And we got here and we saw mostly ligustrum Chinaberry here as it transitions into the cat claw forest that also had the ligustrum. The ligustrum was kind of more on this side. We walked all the way over here, came out here, and then we checked out the backside. We went behind this dormitory, looked at these invasive species, some of these at Sepal, and then we were done. So thank y'all if you made it through it. I give you the most admiration and praise for making it to the end. I hope y'all have a great day and good luck out there, Bobcats.